You're listening to Data Center Therapy. Please take a number, and an engineer will be right with you. Welcome back, everyone, to Data Center Therapy, a podcast from IVOXY Consulting that talks all things IT with a healthy dose of empathy. I'm your host, Matt. You don't want to see my state file, Yeti. And alongside me is my co-host, Mr. Matt Cozzolino.
Good morning, everyone. Or good day.
And each episode, good day, morning, whenever you're listening to this, right?
Good time, yes.
Each episode, we dive into the wide range of technologies that make up this beautiful sandbox called IT that we all play in. We share our hopes and dreams, opinions, both positive and critical alike, all with a touch of empathy, because at the end of the day, we all need a seat on that couch. Now, no matter what time of the day it is, it's probably raining where you are right now.
Probably,
in the Pacific Northwest. Oh my goodness, this January monsoon season that seems to be a reoccurring theme is wearing thin on me. But you're good, right? Your well's nice and full, right?
The wells, I got lots of water. I got the fun metal roof, so it's rattle, rattle, rattle when it really dumps. And yeah, that's pretty cool.
Do you guys like that? Because my wife loves this. I don't know about how she'd feel about a metal roof, but I would say that she'd probably like it, given that when it rains real hard and we can hear it on the skylights and things and the roof, she enjoys that sound.
Yeah, it is actually pretty cool. It's kind of odd because like this morning I woke up and it was super stormy and it was pretty loud and made me go, wow, that's impressive how much is coming down.
Were you getting some wind?
We got a little bit of wind. I don't notice it as much as up in North Bend, but yeah, I'm on the generator right now. I pulled that out this morning and plugged it in.
My reaction is, thank goodness that I can't hear it. Like we're recording, we're always worried about.
It's out on the other side of the house.
We're not in true studios. I think we've done pretty well for working out of our homes and kind of a makeshift studio with good sound. But we're at the mercy of the environment. So I'm glad. Listen to that. That thing's whisper quiet.
Oh no, it isn't.
It's just down there.
It's just on the other side of the house.
All right. Well, today we're going to take a nice little bite. We got a hard stop soon, so we have to make this quick. But if you've been following along with our series on our on-demand lab, I think this is our final feature in that, right?
Something like that. I think we've gotten through most of it. Let us know, I guess, if you've got anything you want to hear about. Right? And there you go.
That's a good point. Yeah. And I think in each episode we kind of probably put our toe in almost every single area that we kind of have then subsequently focused on in its own episode. But really, today's major theme is how do we scale? And I think this goes towards a lot of the people who might be looking into automation for scalability. And we've talked a lot about it, and my revelation that automation isn't necessarily scaling only, it's also standards and consistency.
Always with the consistency.
And all of that goes to this. But let's talk about it, Matt. And I think the big blinking neon sign right now is as far as scale goes for our lab is Terraform, right?
Yeah, that's doing a lot of the heavy lifting for what we're doing. I think we talked about you grabbed the Terraform and ran with it, and then it's gone through a couple 3-4 iterations for the different classes that we've run. Surprisingly, I think the network design that we came up with and stabilized on or settled on was fairly consistent, fairly scalable, usable for all of the different pods, all of the different classes. We didn't have to go back and refactor.
Well, I mean, you did good work with that. I think you said we, and that's very kind of you. But that was your baby, and you did a great job with that. I think if I have to pick on you a little bit, you start to fade towards the academic sometimes, and we can do not all the way, but we can do this, so we're doing it. Mm-hmm. No, but that's fine. But I think you really did a great job of balancing that with practical need, and I think that's why it's been so successful. Is that you really kind of honed in on, that's sometimes can be complex, but there's a reason for that, and that's why this automation, spinning up all these pods and tier 1 routers via NSX, it works and it makes sense. and it just kind of can go out to n,
Hmm.
depending on how many students we want at the same time.
Depending on how much resources we
Yeah.
have available to us. Yeah. Um,
So what is this about a state file? Because that was kind of one of those gotcha moments where when we first kind of got out of the gate,
that
it was
we
I was storing the state file locally, right?
we found that right away. That's kind of the learning experience, the growing pains. So Terraform runs, builds the environment, and then it records everything it does so that it knows what everything should look like in a state file. When you're running it off of a centralized server, that is saved on the server. If you've got the Terraform application available to you, you can run it there. When it's you and I, and it's you're developing on your machine, and I'm developing on my machine, and we're running the Terraform project locally, then I don't know what you've done to the environment or what I've done to the environment. So we have to have somewhere to store that. And I think actually you went and solved that one by putting it up in Azure on a blob data store, right?
It's got an Azure provider that
Mhm.
can talk to a storage account, and we're using that just because we have an Azure account, and
Right.
it was, I think, the path to least resistance. We could
Pick
set up
one.
a
There's like
Terraform
4.
cloud
Yeah.
platform, right? And truthfully, my I have a proclivity to owning your own infrastructure and not depending on public cloud providers, and I probably would have leaned towards Terraform Cloud, but again, with such a, we were under
We
the
had a
gun
fairly
to get
short
things
runway.
going, and it was just boom. Let's just get it up there, and
Mhm.
we can always migrate that state file. You're not stuck on that. It is literally a file. Boop boop, drop
Mhm.
it over here. Terraform looks at it.
And you do have to
But
be
the
kind
thing
of
is, though, with the state file, you need to. That's the way you're managing that resource from here on out.
yes, you need to have that. If it doesn't exist in the state file and it does exist in the real world, then you'll get some clobbering happen when the play tries to run. It's an Ansible term, but concept's still there.
Yeah.
um,
Yep. No, the plan. The
the plan.
plan.
There you go. You do have to be careful with it though, because it does save things like passwords and whatnot in that state file. So it isn't necessarily something you want to check into Git, right?
Right. Right. It is. It's definitely one of your ignore
Mhm.
entries.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. It's still a difficult thing. It's something that you have to really make sure you have buy-in for, because if you're a team of 5 or 6 people and one person's not on board and they go outside of that to edit the settings on a virtual machine that it happens to have been deployed by Terraform, that can be sometimes a little tough thing to walk back from too, right? I mean,
It
how do you deal with that?
kind of. It depends on what gets changed, right? So if I change the number of CPUs, if I manually shut down a VM that's been deployed with Terraform and change it from 2 to 4 CPUs, Terraform the next play will look at that and
Perfect
say,
example.
hey, that's wrong. Let me fix that. Shut the machine down, reset the CPU, power it back on, right? So it'll just fix it. That's not so bad. But if you went and manually deleted a machine, then Terraform will go through and say, hey, so this machine's supposed to be here. I can't find it. Oh God, freak out. And that takes a little more work. You have to actually go taint the object so that it's marked as deleted,
Yep.
marked as gone, and then it goes through the redeploy process for it.
It is really it's crazy to think about. We're working and scaling on a library at its core that is at version 0.14.
Something like that, yeah.
Now, I mean, sometimes you're just like version numbers are, just a number. And in a lot of ways, they certainly can be.
Mhm.
Google operates on a forever beta. Do they still have that theory, Matt? More or less, right? I mean, everything
I
is constantly.
kind of that's
I
the
mean,
what
listen,
CICD
when
kind
everything's
of a thing,
free,
right? Right.
yeah, when everything's free, you don't really have an SLA, right? You're not paying customers, so
Mhm.
whatever. But and Terraform being open source and all of that, but I do feel like it does feel like you have to be smart enough or be aware
Mhm.
of those rough edges, and I feel like as they march, if they march towards 1.0, or at some point, there's going to be a lot more hand holding to it. I feel like a lot of that area gets polished up. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I think that
I'm not knocking how it is now. I'm just saying that it's unforgiving at times.
it is. There's been a lot of I I've been using Terraform for the last, I want to say 2 years now. And there was a vast improvement and vast change, huge shift in how they operated from 11 to 12. I believe that was the step.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like when ASAs went through that big code upgrade from PIX to ASA or whatever it was. There's that version number, like everything
wasn't
before
the
here.
ASA 8.2 to 8.3 the NAT translate?
Was that the one? Yeah, that
shifted.
one, right? That's
yes, 8.2 to 8.3 or 8.3 to 8.4, one of those.
There's a lot of stuff in NetApp with their 7 mode to C dot.
Ooh.
Right? Like a lot of people have that transition, right?
Yes.
Everyone has a lot of that transition, and that's what happened with Terraform. So now I think there's a couple of things we've run into, and it's operational, and it kind of speaks to how we use the environment, and it's we went kind of back and forth, and now I think we're aiming towards the other way of decoupling the network build process from the compute build process. Because, hey, you know what? We can do all this. Let's just run it, and it'll build everything. And so we started down that path and discovered that, you know what, how the NSX bits and the Terraform vSphere cloning bits work together don't kind of know about each other as well as they should.
Because by nature, if you declare things, you don't just drop your hands and it's in place. Things need to happen in certain order, because I can't create a VM because, hey, I need to know what network adapter that VM switch is going to be on. Oh, that network adapter that port group doesn't exist yet. Wait.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're working with instantiation pieces like that, and then things fall into loops. Because, hey, I need X number of these for whatever, and being able to the big issue I see is being able to change from I have 5 of these deployed to I need 10 of these deployed. Right now, with how we've got everything set up, having it combined doesn't work. So breaking them up and saying
but it's then now you're running 2 plans instead of 1. You're still not doing it manually, right? It's
right.
There's a phase 1 and a phase 2, which is fine. And
build the
with
network,
automation,
deploy the compute. Yeah.
With CI/CD, we theoretically could have it kick out output variables. If everything looks okay, go head on to stage 2. We could certainly automate that.
Mm-hmm.
It's to the point, I think, where it's still, we want our hands in the gears at the time, because we're learning too, and it's better. I feel better seeing it in action.
Yeah.
So the nice thing is, you can set up Terraform against a vCenter, with a vSphere provider, but you don't necessarily have to take over all the VMs that are under that vCenter either.
Correct.
You could have a subset. And what is the boundary? Is it just whatever Terraform creates? You don't have to necessarily spin up another folder. It's simply
it's
like, where does it ignore what's already there?
It really doesn't care about anything that it doesn't have a declaration for, right?
Or that you didn't specifically say ingest or whatever. What's the term?
The data provider. You have to define a data provider. So when I build a VM, I have to put it in a folder. So I have to have a folder to build that, and that may mean that that root folder needs to exist, and then I build some subfolders in that. So classes, and then build this specific class folder, and then build this specific pod in this specific class folder.
But the rest of your infrastructure could be protected at that point, more or less. It's just ignored by Terraform.
Mm-hmm. So you carve out this little bucket for it to live in, and it just builds all of its stuff in there, and then you tell everyone, don't touch anything in that bucket.
Now, I still, when it comes to the home lab paradigm, struggle with the practical debate of, is this something that I even care to use or get into at home? And you're talking about, I can tear down my whole infrastructure and set it up with this Terraform plan. Have you had to do that? Do you see a reason to do that? Yada, yada, yada.
That's actually my Christmas project was working on that. As you know, I run a bunch of services out of containers, and I did have one of my Ubuntu hosts that was running as a Docker host. The root volume filled up, and 100% root directory. I can't do this. It needs to
all the
whatever.
Containers go poof.
Yeah. So that process.
But hey, they restart forever.
Right.
Yay.
So that process is, for me, I can clone the host, and then cloning the host is one piece, and then running through the Ansible playbook to build the environment so I can run these containers has actually been the piece that I'm working on. So Terraform has been a smaller part of that, and then Ansible's been the larger piece that I'm working on.
You're doing Terraform for container orchestration as well?
It's really that I just need these 4, 5, 6 VMs, right? So
Yep.
let me.
But I mean, I was just browsing the provider's registry on Terraform this morning, and they have container orchestration as a thing that so you don't leverage it right now for reaching into the Docker layer.
I'm not leveraging it to talk to Docker.
I just gave you a Valentine's Day project.
the way I'm running it is I've got a project on Git with all of my Docker Compose YAML files in it, and I build the host, clone the host, install Docker, install all the dependencies, Python, Ansible, all of that fun stuff, so that I can work with it. Go pull that registry down, and then manually say fire up these containers. So persistent storage on the back end.
Yeah, I saw you doing some work on your Plex over the weekend, I think. I saw some firewall rules changing.
Yeah, that's
what is he up to, that mad scientist?
Well,
it's funny you say you don't use it that way. You don't use Terraform to orchestrate your containers. That's not a wrong answer. That's the thing, and it can be frustrating when you look for guidance. You want to find those blog posts that find some. It's almost like the Amazon review you look for that hits home. That says,
yes.
That's me. That's me. That's that scenario. And I look for blog posts with, I want to get the solution running, or it's something weird, and it's when it comes to DevOps, there's
so much.
1,000 blog posts that might get you to the finish line. It's which one do you want to take on, and what path do you want to take? Do you want it to be Andy Dufresne going through that pipe on the way out of the prison, or go out the front door?
Lately, I've seen when I search for stuff, it's like I've been playing with the NetApp Trident plugin for persistent container storage. And so I search for a thing, and it's, here's this bug fix or bug issue, and then you got the developer that's writing this script or the code or whatever, and hey, we fixed this in release number. Yes, I'm on the Slack channel for Trident, and I'm on the Slack channel for what's the other one? I think just containers, just Docker containers. Yeah, just Docker.
Yeah.
Those two right now.
I got dropped into that around this time last year.
Trident specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was, well, they have pivoted since then, right? They had their, forgive me for forgetting already, but their initial container approach strategy tied in with their HCI platform and the deployment engine and all of this. And they have since said, you know what, let's refocus and take a different tack. So you're on the current gen certainly, but it could be different than what I was plugged into originally about a year ago this time. Things are moving that fast.
Yeah, of course.
But hopefully for the better, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, Terraform, all these changes, but it is ultimately improving. Change for change's sake, the birds can have it. But as long as it's improving, that's better. And I think 7 mode to cluster mode.
I'm been super happy with cluster mode. I think Trident's actually pretty cool. It actually lets you define the storage and builds either the NAS data store or the iSCSI volume. And presents it and mounts it and maps it to the host. So it does everything on the storage array and then presents it to the host up front. And you can control that with that Docker Compose file, which is kind of neat.
That's nice.
Yeah,
that's nice because that's the big stretch your legs out. Now I go from stepstone to stepstone, because before then all I could think of, so great, it's a vCenter plugin, That's a NetApp volume that mounts up automatically to all my hosts in my cluster. That's a vCenter, which is ultimately a glorified script that talks to an API.
Pretty much
on the storage side and the VMware side. So we're kind of, isn't it funny how companies are now not focused on necessarily only the experience that we have, but more or less giving us the tools, and now it's go write your own UI.
Right.
Go write your own methods on how to use it.
Here's an API. Go figure out what you want to do. Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want that Happy Meal. We're going to give you the buns, the pickles, and
build your own
patty,
burger.
do
Yeah.
what you want with it.
Yeah.
It's Kramer's make your own pizza. You make your own pie with Poppy.
Nah. One of the things I did want to bring up was we've as we've gone through, as we've built some of the projects for the lab itself, changing how we define everything. And I found, I think I had a bit of a light bulb in saying, if we're going to clone this VM, if we're going to clone this machine, then that whole machine definition should be in its own file. It makes it a little more consumable, a little more easy to work with. I can have a template for that VM clone process, and then I can, in one file, say, here's the source you're coming from, here's the thing you need to go through, here's the settings you need, and I don't have to scroll through this giant.
So that's includable with the parent file, I'm guessing.
If you throw them all in the same level, they just work.
Okay.
Rather than include a sub build, include a sub build, include a sub build.
You know what's funny? I went from one side to the other in my mental processing of what you're telling me as I was listening. Within like, 4 seconds, I was like, at first, I drop on the Cosmo, you're making it. Remember that thing about that complexity that I'm talking about? And then I was going, well, yeah, it's the same. So now you've got a modular setup.
Yeah.
Okay, going back. We have a customer that's a rubric customer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I've talked about this on the podcast. They have a payroll system. It's like 25 VMs, and they've got 2 rubrics, and they replicate. Well, they have to. Payroll's an uber important piece of their infrastructure, of course, and they've got legal pieces to that, right? So basically, I wrote a PowerShell script that they execute. It asks a couple questions on execution. Do you want to do a full restore of the databases, or do you want to do a live mount? Like, do you need this up right freaking now, and I'll worry about the outage when I vMotion it later, or do I want to wait for the full restore of all the data? Wait now, but then I don't have to do an outage later. All that kind of stuff. But what it does is leverages a folder that I run it from, and it looks for .json files.
Yeah.
And I have a JSON file for every single server it's going to bring up. And so if I need to add a server to that script, easy peasy, I drag it. And each JSON file has definitions where I can add customizations. Like the SQL database servers have extra fields in those JSON files that basically say, yes, this is where my databases are on E on this one, they're on M on the other one.
Right.
So it can be smart about that. So yeah, I mean, that's all you're doing is taking a long file and breaking it up into smaller ones. And then if you need to add another one, you just copy the framework, add another file. You don't have to go searching, possibly break a bracket. Oops.
That's what it was, scroll through this list and let me change the number of CPUs on this VM. Oh, crap, that was the wrong one. Now let's go to this VM file and change the thing there, right?
Are you using yet? And I know I haven't. I'm asking this because I need to catch up myself. I haven't touched on a little bit. I know you're working with Keith very closely on the network automation class, so you've had a vested interest in what you guys are up to. But are we settling a little bit more on more global variables? I've found that the definitions in the variables file, it's a little confusing into where you define. Okay, procedural script, right? Top of it, bang, bang, comment. Let's put out all of our static variables where we can change things. But I found it a little more difficult from a Terraform standpoint.
I think that's the piece that's one of the things that lends itself to doing it with individual files. Yes, you have that odd, like you have to define the variables at every step of the way, which is. I think that's kind of annoying. I think there's a benefit that I'm not realizing there, but whenever I want to add something to this nested procedure that I'm calling, it's okay, well, I got to define the variable, define the variable, define the variable, define the variable, define the variable. Now I can use it, right? So having the individual plays gives you the ability to say, here's the things I need for this one, and you go look at that machine. And now you can, everything should be right there for you. I don't know. It's back and forth. It's.
I see the Git was updated 20 hours ago.
Not by me.
Very nice. Not by you.
No.
Oh, the network automation Git is a little behind, Maddie.
Is it?
It is.
What do you
It's
mean?
very possible you've had it mostly set up. I haven't seen an update here. It says the last commit was 2 months ago.
Yeah, I
Oh,
haven't.
I know what 20 hours ago was. That
I
was
haven't
that was me
touched it.
pushing. That was me pushing PowerShell.
I think
Has it been? Oh, so it hasn't been worked on or it hasn't been changed.
um it so that's kind of the nice thing is once we got
Yeah.
all the network ironed out, I mean it's cookie cutter for that from that, and then I say
Are you
Keith,
doing the
hey,
compute though in
I say
what you're
Keith,
just talking about? Have you done that?
yeah, I say hey Keith, update your source template. Let me know when you're ready for a redeploy, and I go Terraform destroy, Terraform apply. That doesn't update any code.
No, I guess what I'm asking is the Terraform definitions for the individual files for the cloned machines that you were talking about.
Um,
Is
so
that just conceptual right now?
Keith's class doesn't have that. I didn't get that for his. I got that for Ryan's
Ah.
class. So go look at the compute one and you'll see.
Oh no, Matt. No, I see it. They're in VM04 Tower GitLab engine. I see them, the TF files. It's just you just must have done that 2 months ago, and 2 months flies by just that long.
Something like that.
Quickly.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Learning on the fly.
Yep. And then that's what happens is I don't touch it for a couple of months and I got to go back and say, what
I
was
know.
I doing?
Might as well have a flush button on your ear. It's like whew, that's
Yeah.
gone. Got to relearn.
Yep.
Yeah, it's brutal. Well, so right now, the way we tie it all together, we've got a staging box that leverages vRealize Orchestrator, because really we don't have a need for things. You can't automate the creation of a class in terms of now we're going to create it, because there is no trigger to say, oh, the class is tomorrow, let's spin it up. We're not that bold just yet, right? I suppose we could do
Right.
that.
Right.
There's no harm in having things running a week ahead of time,
Right.
burning in or testing it out. So we kick things off manually, and we basically say, okay, we've got a class. This is the class name, because for every class we run, we have a short name defined to ID that class, and this is the instructor. So the instructor gets their own pod, and they get rights to that pod, entitlements, and then this is how many students, and we always do n plus, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, even 2x or 2n. Is not out of the question depending on resources.
Spin up some extras. Yep.
And vRealize Orchestrator, we've set up a little onboarding form where you give it that information, you kick it off, and it goes and reaches out to Active Directory. VRO access has entitled access to Active Directory. It goes and deploys an OU, then creates accounts based on how many student numbers there are, and then it goes over and it says, okay, I've got all that, and it says, here you go, PowerShell, run this script that then ties into Horizon. That I would say is the weakest part. It works, but Horizon, and I have not played yet with Horizon 8's claimed improved API. Color me skeptical. And as of right now, there's no. See, a Terraform provider for Horizon would be amazing.
Right. Yes, I agree.
That would be great.
That would be
us.
amazing. Yeah.
But right now we kind of have this PowerShell island strictly for creating the Horizon pod. So the way we do it right now, there is kind of it's VMware provided, but there's a PowerShell library for Horizon View. But what you kind of have to do is the commandlets aren't fully robust. You kind of have to work around, especially if you're working with an alternative network adapter. So you have to basically build a JSON spec file within PowerShell. I mean, however you want, but we generate it with PowerShell that basically specifies a lot of the parameters and the properties of that pool, who the instructor is and all this, and what snapshot it's based on, and then it kicks off a new pool. The problem then is, because we're using NSXT, you have to do weird stuff with the network definitions, but then you can't change the network until the pool is in a very specific state. And if you try to do it beforehand, it falls over. So we have the script watching for status as it's building the pool, and then it sets the network. And then the very last step is, because you can't do it on creation until it's up, is the entitlement. You have to entitle the specific student to his or her specific pool.
Yeah.
That is the PowerShell magic there. At that point, Matt, we do need the pods already to exist at that point. The student infrastructure.
Yep, because we need a network to drop the desktops in.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
There's
So
that's kind of
that's, I mean, VRO. We do Terraform, then we do VRO. VRO is the basically student user side of things. Terraform is the infrastructure pod side of things. And it's been working well, right?
Yeah, and like you mentioned, we should be able to take the Terraform bits and plug it into VRO and make the entire build the class a single process that kicks off Terraform to deploy the network, kicks off Terraform to clone the VMs, kicks off the PowerShell script to build the AD accounts, kicks off, right?
Easily.
Yeah.
My holdback on that, and the reason why I haven't even, it's not like I'm hitting my head against a wall. It's right now, running Terraform from a command line is
so easy.
It so minimally, yes. But and so with that, the work in order to deal with my problem in with every programming is how do you exception handling, right? If Terraform barks something back that's not as expected, if it's not all green, all okay, what do I do? And I suppose we could fail the entire process, and we haven't done anything procedural yet, so who cares? And just run it again. But it's just we want to make sure that we know what went wrong. And with Terraform, it does output, but it also has output variables as a function, which kind of things that you can say, I want to know, give me this result code, give me the number of this, give me that on the way out after it's done applying the plan. And sometimes we still have the issue, Matt, where you have to run Terraform a couple times sometimes because of, I think the NSXT provider is not completely mature yet.
I think we're hitting a timeout piece on that. That's kind of the biggest one I see happen. I think it happened just the other day when I cloned Keith's class. It asks for all the networks to be built, and it doesn't realize, that's what they call it. It doesn't realize that they're built because it times out before they're done. So the fix is just up arrow enter, and it runs again and says, hey, look, everything's done. Cool. There you go.
And that, something about that, or even automating that, feels hacky to me.
I mean, we could so it's like
you could run it 3 times, and hey, if it just would add a little bit of time, but if it all comes back green with those output variables, then carry on. I suppose that might not be a bad idea.
You can go completely the other way with it and say, hey, at any time you want to do anything, go touch Terraform and make sure that the environment is what you expect it to be. Right? That's not
be
a
wrong.
bad,
it's just
right? Exactly.
Well, yeah. So I mean, we've got that in mind. We have plenty of experience with Ansible as a company. We have a few engineers here, especially Matt, who's very strong at it as well. So there's that in play too, where you might be able to go further down the line there as well. But yeah, I think we're out of time for this episode. But thanks all for joining us. We hope you had a good time listening to us go back and forth about GitHub check-ins and how come you haven't done a pull request.
How come you haven't checked your code in yet?
Right.
I know my Christmas project has been checked out and changing because I haven't hit this is a good spot, it works. I haven't hit that since December. So it's like everything is green, everything is yellow, saying, hey, this is all changed.
I'm just getting back into refreshing my app, my iOS app that I've written that I haven't touched in about 18 months. And so re-getting my Xcode set up against my GitLab deployment and getting everything all cut up, and it's anyway. Yes. It's one of those things where if you don't touch it in a year, you basically forget it, have to relearn all over again.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Well, again, thanks for listening to Data Center Therapy. If you're not yet a subscriber, smash that subscribe button. Yeah, give us a 5-star review on iTunes. We would love it. We'd very much appreciate it. Oh, yeah. Thanks again. Nice chatting with you, Matt.
You too. Have a good one.